Ruptured spleen and always carry a purse. I got eyes like a bat and my feet are flat and my asthma's getting worse. Oh, think of my career and my sweetheart dear and my poor old invalid aunt. There ain't no fool, I'm going to school and I'm working at the defense plant. Tin soldiers and Nixon's coming. We're finally on our own. This summer I hear the drumming. For dead in Ohio, for dead in Ohio, for dead in Ohio.
Here's how Dave has described the tumultuous period leading up to the March on the Pentagon in 1967, the historic protest at the Democratic National Convention in 1968, and the show trial of the Chicago 8 in 1969.
The anti-war movement did not start in a vacuum. It was the offspring of previous movements for justice and peace. And like a lot of children, it had to fight its way against the efforts of its parents to prevent it from straying too far aside the compromises they themselves had made with conventional society. In some ways, I was cast in the role of being an older brother in these conflicts, someone old enough to be importuned to side with the parents, but was more frequently drawn to stand with the rebellious kids.
Everyone should have that kind of older brother. In 1966, Dave visited Vietnam for the first time, personally witnessing the ruthless conduct of the war, visiting with US POWs, and getting the Vietnamese side of the story from Ho Chi Minh. Dave says Ho never spoke harshly of Americans, although he did criticize the U.S. preoccupation with money and materialism. They talked about Harlem. Ho had worked for a Brooklyn family after World War I, the poverty of black people, and how anti-communist paranoia had led the U.S. into a series of arrogant mistakes. Before they parted, Ho Chi Minh offered a final message.
We do not want to humiliate the Americans or make it difficult for them to return home. If they finally decide to let us live in peace and take their soldiers home when they can lead safe and honorable lives, we will have celebrations for them. Our girls will bring flowers to the boats as they get ready to sail away, and our musicians will play songs for them.
By 1967, the death toll in Vietnam was rising, and the anti-war movement was gaining incredible momentum. People were burning their graft cards, and a link was finally being forged between anti-war activists and leaders within the civil rights movement. Dave also played a crucial role in that alliance. As the slogan for the October 1967 protest, march, and civil disobedience in Washington urged, it was time to move from protest to resistance. And that included the dramatic plan to shut down the Pentagon.
Some people wanted a festival of life. Others wanted the candidate nominated under the bayonets of the National Guard. We'd come to expose the party we held responsible for the war and racism, and to demonstrate our opposition. But in spite of all our planning, the actions open to us were still limited, conventional.
The Movement Center and the Boston Movement Center and the people who were moving into some kind of positions of responsibility by going through the MOB into some kind of centralized command. We don't have a centralized command. I don't. I mean, through the MOB marshals. And nobody's given me any commands that seem to me to have a solid overview of the situation. I think things are loose. And with their 40,000 troops of one kind or another, their tanks, their mace, their artillery, they have exposed themselves. Chicago has become a concentration camp, and it is clear for everybody to see.
That was the aim, to expose the Democratic Party, expose the force which really controls this country. So throughout the summer, movement activists considered the possibilities of a Chicago action.
The latest supposed insight from the police is that if we don't have the permits and we insist on going to the amphitheater, that we'll be allowed to assemble, and then we'll be given an order saying that we're illegal and that we must disband, and if we don't disband, after 30 minutes everybody is subject to arrest. Our response is that 10,000 people constitute a permit. The city is our servant and not our master, and that therefore we're going to the amphitheater. So far, we are only on the sidewalk. We are not even on the street yet, although it is certainly our intention to march to the amphitheater in the street because we think that the street is necessary to accommodate this many people. We're stubborn bastards. We may be nonviolent, but we're stubborn. And so we are appealing publicly through the press, through Deputy Commander Reardon.
We're even on the sidewalk.
There'll be no march today.
We've made very clear that we have no conflict. Here, come today.
The order is, sir, that there'll be no march today. Been able to march on the sidewalk. No march today.
Well, we'd like to reason that should be known to the world.
And we will let you know at the proper time. But right now, there'll be no march.
This is a legal walk.
There will be no march today.
These racist dogs out of the black community. We are beginning to fight for our own survival. We came here, we fought, we did not run from the tear gas, we did not run from the bayonet, we stayed in the streets, and we did survive, and if we can survive here, we can survive in any local community in this country.
When we left Chicago to go back to our own communities, our sense of triumph quickly became a memory. What we went back to was the tough day-to-day work of building a revolutionary movement. And what Chicago finally came to for us was a feeling of what it might be like after making that revolution, when anyone could say, "We are the people."
Activists were indicted. Tom Hayden, Abby Hoffman, John Froines, Lee Weiner, Jerry Rubin, Rennie Davis, Bobby Seale, and Dave Dellinger. The basic charges were, first, traveling across state lines with the intent to incite, organize, promote, encourage, participate in, and carry on a riot. Second, to teach and demonstrate the use, application, and making of incendiary devices to further civil disorder. And third, a conspiracy among the 8 to do these things. There was no conspiracy, except the one the government was cooking up. In fact, some of the defendants didn't even know one another. And as Abby Hoffman used to say, we couldn't agree on much. But they knew the charges were really a distraction, a persecution in disguise. So rather than try to win on a technicality, they decided to put the government and its court on trial, and to use any means at hand. They were about to make history. The trial ran 5 months. There was no court TV then, so we don't have a visual record. But we do have transcripts
and many of the key moments made news across the country. Some were absurdly funny, like Jerry and Abby showing up for court in judges' robes, or the day the defendants rolled in a cake to celebrate Bobby Seale's birthday. When Judge Hoffman ruled the cake out of order, Bobby replied,
"You can arrest a cake, but you can't arrest a revolution."
At other times, the trial took on the character of an inquisition. And perhaps never so clearly as on October 29. For a month, Bobby Seale had been denied his right to defend himself. That particular day, some Black Panthers were in the courtroom. Bobby told them to stay calm, but when one of the prosecutors suggested that the Panthers were really planning an attack, Bobby called him a dirty liar, a fascist pig liar. Here's a little of what happened on that day. Bobby Seale.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Dave Dellinger.
Good morning. I would like to request the right again to re-examine this witness because my lawyer, Charles R. Gary, is not here, and because I have been denied the right to defend myself in this courtroom. I am requesting and demanding, in fact, that I have a right to cross-examine this witness, sir, at this trial.
Judge Julius Hoffman.
Mr. Marshall, take the jury out.
And all the defendants support Bobby Seale's right to have a counsel of his choice and affirm that he has been denied that right.
For that remark, Dave was sentenced to 7 days in jail for contempt of court.
Why don't you recognize my constitutional right?
All I want to tell you is this. If you speak once again while the jury is in the box, we will take steps as are indicated in the circumstances.
The steps threatened were to bind and gag Bobby. Later, after Leonard Weinglass cross-examined the witness, here's what happened.
Is there any redirect examination?
Before the redirect, I would like to request again to demand that I be allowed to cross-examine the witness. My lawyer is not here. I think I have a right to defend myself in this courtroom.
Take the jury out.
You have George Washington and Benjamin Franklin sitting in a picture, and they were slave owners. That's what they were. You are acting in the same manner, denying me my constitutional rights of being able to cross-examine the witness.
Mr. Seale, I have admonished you previously what might happen to you if you keep on talking.
Happen to me? What can happen to me more than what Benjamin Franklin and George Washington did to the people under slavery?
And I might add, since it is being said here that all of the defendants support you in your position, that I might include that they are bad risks for bail. Have him sit down, Mr. Marshall.
Prosecutor Schultz.
May the record show, if the court please, that while the marshals were seating Bobby Seale, pushing him into his chair, the defendant Dellinger physically attempted to interfere with the marshals by pushing them out of the way.
Now, what really happened was that Dave tried to prevent the marshals from kneeing Bobby in the balls. And Dave got kneed himself. Hoffman also gave Dave a month's sentence for contempt.
I have a right to defend myself.
Will you, Mr. Marshall, ask that man to sit down?
May the record show that the defendant Dellinger did the same thing just now.
I saw it myself.
Now, at this point, Judge Hoffman ordered a recess, but the defendants refused to rise. Everyone got a contempt sentence for that. As they were leaving the courtroom, Abby and Jerry ran up to Dave, and Abby said,
"That's real nonviolence. That kind of nonviolence we believe in."
After the recess, there were more angry words between Bobby and the judge. Finally, Judge Hoffman said,
"We will take a recess. Take the defendant into that room there and deal with him as he should be dealt with in this circumstance."
Everyone knew what that meant. For the other defendants, the situation